introduce yourself and your academic background also?
Sure. My name is Andrej Grubacic. I'm a professor and department chair of the Anthropology and Social Change Department, which is housed within San Francisco Institute for Integral Studies. I'm also associated with UC Berkeley and University of Coimbra, which is in Portugal.
Yes, thank you a lot. And could you tell us how you first got to know about Öcalan and his writings?
My best friend, late David Graeber, phoned me one day and he said, "You have to read this. This is incredible." And he was in touch with people from the Kurdish freedom movement and he was giving me books. And I absolutely loved the books that were translated. In those days, I think it was the prison writings. So that was 2000, soon after the revolution in Rojava erupted. And both David and myself became very close to the Kurdish freedom movement, started reading books, studying different aspects of the Kurdish thought, especially the idea of democratic nation, which for me was really important because I myself come from former Yugoslavia. And former Yugoslavia exploded in ethnic nationalism, and the idea of democratic nation was something that I really enjoyed greatly. So when you think about all of these things, I think that most of the ideas of Kurdish federalism, democratic confederalism, are something that speaks to my own feeling and experience of politics as somebody who comes from the Balkans. And the Balkans itself has its own tradition of horizontal stateless federalism. So it was easy to make the connection and it was easy to start feeling and experiencing the Kurdish struggle as my own.
Okay, and then maybe another question also. What do you think should be the role of social sciences and academic work within social movements?
I think it should be integral to social movements. As I said during the talk, I think that one of the greatest lies of capitalist modernity or capitalist civilization is that ordinary people cannot think by themselves. They need competent specialists, community of competent to tell them how to do it. Social movements need to be integrated within the world of social sciences, and social sciences need to integrate social movements. So I do not see any difference, any distinction, any reason for difference and distinction between social movements and social science. And I think that social science itself needs to become a social movement.
Okay, thank you a lot. And is there anything else you would like to share? Any last words?
Just to say that the Kurdish struggle is something that inspires and not just inspires, it's something that includes so many of us who are not ethnically or geographically from the Kurdish areas. And that this is perhaps the most important thing about it, that so many of us can actually feel this struggle as our own.
What role will the academy that we built up here, Academy of Social Sciences, play in the future?
So I'm one of the founders of the Academy for Social Science, which you probably notice is singular, inspired by Öcalan and others thinking about singular social science. Now, the whole idea is to have the Academy inspiring a social movement of social sciences from below and being one of the first institutions, or if not the first institution, that tries to create that democratic confederalism of knowledge institutions by promoting the idea of sociology of freedom and other ways of thinking about social science as a unitary project.
Okay, so hello and welcome to our interview. First, could you please introduce yourself, your name, and your background also?
Yes. Hi, thank you. I'm Kathy Wallerstein. I am an academic and an activist, and I also work in the arts. And my father was in contact with indirectly, obviously, Öcalan, and his work has been used by the Kurdish people.
And can you tell us the reason for why you came to this conference here today and why you think the Academy for Social Sciences is important?
It's just what an amazing gathering of people, of thinkers and feelers and scholars and musicians. I think that the way that this day happened is a beautiful example of what the Academy will do, why we need the Academy. I grew up in the social sciences. That's the world I grew up in. I myself am more humanities and arts, but I've also always understood them all to be part of the same, part of the same story. I mean, and that everything we do is in service of a better world and a good world. And so I think that para-university structures are more and more important. I myself have been involved in a number of them, and I'm thrilled that the Social Science Academy is going to be is coming into being, and I hope to be part of it.
What do you think, which kind of role can the Academy play in the future?
I think the most important role it can play is to create a space, both literally and figuratively, for new kinds of thought, because that's what we need. We need free spaces of coming together and experimenting and undoing, undoing all. I mean, as Haven was saying, sort of undoing all the internal sort of colonialism of ourselves and so on that we've submitted ourselves to. But yeah. Just really literally the creation of a space to come together and think together and figure things out together. I guess I just think that, again, this gathering today is just such a beautiful example of the ways in which we can come together and do come together across disciplines. I mean, there's so many languages we have in common. There's so many more languages we have in common than not. And today was just a beautiful example of that, and I'm very excited for the Academy to show that to be true.
My name is Sonny Saul. I'm living in Vermont in the United States, in the town of Woodstock, where I have an antiquarian bookstore, which I've had for 40 years. And I got in touch with, I've got 4 children, and teach music and compose music and perform in the United States. And I'm happy to be at this conference. It feels like a real honor. I came into contact with the music of the writings of Abdullah Öcalan through a conference attended by my son Quincy, who plays clarinet. and I had been studying history of Sumer in Mesopotamia and produced a book about Gilgamesh. So I was ready for Öcalan's writings to take me to the next level. I had understood, I hadn't approached it in such a sociological perspective before. And I was moved at that time to share this new impetus of intelligent thinking and feeling. So what can you do as a single person? I had some musical skills. I came up with this suite in music, I guess I thought of it as a composition in several parts, but that all separate but all related, and I tried to use music, the elements of music that would refer to the Middle Eastern traditions. So I used time signatures that were non-Western, and harmonies that were a little bit non-Western, but definitely out of the tradition in which I emerged. As I've always been influenced by American jazz and by European classical music. So I tried to use those elements to express my appreciation and admiration for the work of Öcalan, and to call attention, if I could, in some small way, to his work. And I feel like maybe it's starting. Yeah.
Yes, thanks a lot. And could you tell us a bit more about the content of the suite? Like, what does it reflect, the music?
There's a prelude in the beginning of the music. If you heard it, it's out of time and free, and which is a part of the music. The feeling I get from Öcalan is because he's in this situation of having been in prison for so long. It's timeless and repetitive, and so I wanted to include that feeling. So the prelude is like that, and then the second part is called Apologia, and he's called Apo, so it's a little funny. But an apologia is explanation, right? Not an apology. But here's the story. So that the first part of the movement is a long movement in 11/4 that has many different emotional aspects. We try to bring out. It's different every time it's played, and we tried in that piece to try to have more freedom. And identity isn't the same all the time. So it's, and Öcalan changed in his life, his identity changed, and probably is changing again. And then with the third part of it is I called it Struggle and Solidarity, which is in 4/4, and is the most jazz-like or most American of all the parts of the piece, and which we hope to have express the solidarity that I feel as an American with something that has not much really to do with me, but except that I want it to. I would love to be helpful or to express sympathy. And then the last part is in 3/4, and I called it Beyond History, We Are Nothing, which is just a quote from Öcalan saying how important beyond history we are nothing. What does he possibly mean? And it's good to think about that. And I think it doesn't need my explanation. Everyone that hears those words should try to imagine what they might say. And we try to express very much a feeling of freedom. We don't know what's going to come next. There are certain themes that are explicit; they have to be stated. But there's some that are that are open. So I think that's maybe that's enough to say about it.
Now, Good afternoon, friends, comrades, kindred. This is a very special event. So grateful that you're all here. Your presence to celebrate the launch of the Academy of Social Science is like heart medicine right now in a time of very, very, very difficult world events. But what the Kurdish freedom movement and Öcalan's writings teach us is that we can change this storyline. It's not inevitable. We can do it all differently, all of it. Öcalan's new paradigm offers a way outside of the logic of the state and capitalism and patriarchy. A democratic modernity built on localized participatory democracy, a re-enchanted relationship to Mother Earth, and the centrality of women and liberated gender relations. During the 2022-23 Jinjian Azadi uprising in Rojhelat and other parts of Iran, as a broad resistance was gaining momentum, independent trade union and civil organizations, a coalition of 20 independent labor unions, feminist, student, and civic organizations issued a charter of minimum demands to the Islamic Republic of Iran in the context of social and economic crisis facing the country and the state's brutal response to recent uprisings. On the list of demands is the immediate release of all political prisoners who were and are primarily Kurdish and Baluchi, and the abolition of the death penalty, an immediate and full equality of rights between women and men in all political, economic, social, cultural, and family spheres, unconditional abolition of discriminatory laws against sexual and gender relations, and tendencies, recognition of the rainbow society, decriminalization of all gender relations, and unconditional adherence to all women's rights over their bodies and destiny, and preventing patriarchal control. That was a quote. I want to emphasize that Öcalan's use of the term identity connotes something quite different. Identity, and here gender identity specifically, is not seen as a static position, but rather a relational experience that is continuously deconstructed and transformed.
In the presentation of our academy, it says to the effect, with reference to Abdullah Öcalan's analysis, that while the dominant forces of the modern world system are attempting to overcome the structural crisis in every way they can, and to establish a new system of exploitation and domination, it depends on us, whether as individuals or communities, to find the alternatives and thereby acquire the conviction that change is possible. Otherwise, the dominant forces will prevail. I have a suspicion that most people gathered here, if not all, are better versed in the historical and theoretical works of Abdullah Öcalan than I am. But what attracts me to his works and political endeavors are not necessarily his ideas in the minute details, but the premises he builds on, the importance he places on equality, democracy, ecology, and, this is being crucial for me, the idea that you must start with yourself, that all of us together must start with ourselves. According to Öcalan, gender equality is not something you acquire after the revolution. On the contrary, there will be no revolution without gender equality. And now Abdullah Öcalan wants to lay down arms and disband the PKK to pave the way for peace negotiations. It is to be seen how the Turkish authorities will respond to this outstretched hand. But in a world intent on weaponizing, killing, and destroying, this is a voice the many will want to listen to. And the world will be open to learn about the thoughts and reflections behind this message.
Desperation or waiting for a savior is not cutting it. We Kurds learned it the very hard way. We were desperate. Nobody heard our voice. And still maybe this is the case. So through the sacrifice of 50,000 people and so many more tortured, lost their homes, became refugees, and all of it. But not only resisting, but also thinking with the guidance of Abdullah Öcalan, where are we? What are we doing wrong? What our utopias are, and how are they right or wrong? Is it just the colonizers? Is it just the imperialists? What is truth? For a long time, Kurds could not find their place in this truth that is being spoken about by social scientists, by politicians, etc. What is the truth of women? Why isn't it there in the social sciences? Why isn't it there in the politics of the left? Of the men who are the leftists? Or the women who are also left? But as I said, can we stop here? And I think what Abdullah Öcalan, 50,000 martyrs, and the Kurdish society doing together at the moment is in the middle of a war zone, try to imagine a different life. This is why they take the lead of Öcalan. Because he allows them, he paves the way, he pushes away the clouds, makes a free life within reach. What this academy builds upon is not only the knowledge of the Kurdish freedom movement and the women's movement, but also, of course, it builds upon all the freedom movements around the world. What gathers us here today is not just our refusal of the system, but our quest to bring together this truth and freedom together. Because freedom without truth is just liberalism. I find the worth of academy in this. I find the worth of Abdullah Öcalan and the Kurdish movement in this. And I find that all this knowledge turns the times of capitalist modernity as not a times of hopelessness, but Öcalan says it's the time of hope. We know more than we ever did. We have to find ways of exploring what a free life means and how do we, in the midst of warfare, in our daily relations and beyond that, weave it so we can find the exit here and now and implement its politics, its philosophy, its social science. So thank you for being here. And we hope to develop the music, the aesthetics, the philosophy, the ways, the tools of how to live, not only in this academy further, but all together. Thank you for being here. And we are going to continue our discussions tomorrow and further with all of you. Thank you very much.